Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Welcome to the hybrid meeting of the full council. Can I ask everyone to please mute their microphones at all times unless invited to speak by myself. Members should be mindful that microphones, when switched on, are sensitive and may broadcast other conversations being held in the vicinity. I would also ask members, when it is their turn to speak into the microphones so that they can be clearly heard by those in the chamber and those listening at home. First of all, we have opening announcement. It's my sad duty to inform the council of the passing of Mr. Joe Duffy, father of Councillor Paul Duffy. Joe was a councillor in the Craigavon councillor, an independent councillor from 1997 to 2001, and our thoughts are with Paul, his brothers and sisters, and the extended family at this difficult time. Move on then to. Okay, at this point I'll bring in Councillor Claire McConville-Walker.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for letting me in there. It was just to echo your sentiments to our fellow councillor, Paul Duffy, on the sad passing of his dad, Joe, last night. As you know, Paul and his family lost their mummy just about a year ago as well, so it's been a tough time for them. And Joe had been in quite bad health for the last while, and the family have really rallied together to support their daddy through all of this, so I know his passing is very, very tough on them. So it's just to send our thoughts and prayers to Paul's sister Sandra and Mary, to his brothers Paul and Michael, and to the wider Duffy family. Paul's dad Joe, as you mentioned, was a councillor here in the council in the 90s, and during that time, and previous for years before that, was an absolutely stalwart in the local community. Very well known, very well respected, a great character, and worked tirelessly for the community around him, and he really did love his community, and I know he will be a big, big loss to the area and to the Duffy family. Thank you.
And our next speaker is Councillor Peter Lavery.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to put our own condolences on records from the Alliance Group from the passing of Paul's dad, Joe. And as Councillor McConville-Walker pointed out, you know, Joe lost his wife around a year ago, so it's been a very difficult time for the family. So I just want to let Paul and his brothers and sisters and the wider family circle know that we're thinking of him very much at this very difficult time. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Julie Flaherty.
Yes, Lord Mayor, thank you. Just to pass on from the entire Ulster Unionist Group, our condolences also to Councillor Paul Duffy on the sad loss of his father.
Okay, thank you. Moving on then to agenda item 1, which is apologies. We have apologies from Alderman Mark Baxter and of course Councillor Paul Duffy. Are there any apologies from the floor other than that? And I can advise Councillor Hockian.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, Kevin Savage, please.
Okay, noted. Thank you. And can I advise that we have the following members have joined the meeting remotely, and that is Councillor Joy Ferguson, Councillor Catherine Nelson, Councillor Thomas O'Hanlon, and Councillor Lavelle McElrath. Okay. Councillor Hockian.
Sorry, Chair. There's a event in Armagh around the violence against women and girls, so some of our councillors are attending that and may be slightly late online, but they will be along. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. There's just a remark or two I want to make myself before we move into the council minutes. Today marks 8 weeks since I became Lord Mayor of this borough. In that time, I have attended approximately 90 events, ranging from agricultural shows to school visits, recognising volunteers who give of their time. And I think particularly of Mrs. Phyllis McElduff of St Vincent de Paul, who I recently had in here, who at 97 years of age has retired after 36 years voluntary work in their shop in Lurgan. I have also had the privilege of attending Katie Orange Songs of Praise, and at the weekend, the Vibe Church Fun Night on the Mall in Armagh. There were over 1,000 people attendance from all backgrounds, and it really shows what can be done by our communities working together and by volunteers who give of their time to help others and to work for others. Finally, the British Tug of War Championships were held last weekend, and I was honoured to open them. I was asked, would Council consider sending a team? And I thought to myself, yes, well, we've plenty of heavyweights, but perhaps pulling in the same direction would be the biggest challenge. Okay, members, moving on then. Agenda item 2, Council minutes. Can I have a proposer and a seconder that the minutes of the Council meeting held on the 23rd of June are taken as read and approved as a correct record? Councillor Hare, thank you. And Alderman Greenfield, thank you. Are we agreed to adopt the decisions contained in the minutes? Happy to move on. Thank you. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Can we take these as we progress through the meeting, or is there anyone who wants to raise them at this point in time? Councillor Flaherty.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, just there are a number of items further down in the meeting where it would be pertinent that I did declare that I have a relative who is a member of staff of ABC Council and Environmental Services.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Flaherty. And we now move on then to agenda item 4, which is a presentation from the Forest Service in relation to Gosford Forest Park. Okay, can I welcome to the meeting Mr. John Joe Cassidy and Mr. Dawson Jones from the Forest Service, who have been invited to provide an update regarding future plans for Gosford Forest Park following the devastation caused by Storm Owen. You're very welcome, gentlemen, and if you can confine your presentation to about 10 minutes, then we'll have about 10 minutes to allow for members to ask questions. Thank you.
Thanks, William. Lord Mayor, councillors. Forest Service on the 24th of January 2025 is a memorable date. Storm Owen come immediately after Dara in December, and a year exactly after Storm Isha and Jocelyn. The output of it is that across the Forest Estate there's been 4,000 hectares, old money 10,000 acres, impacted by one completely blown down. So since that time, Forest Service has been working primarily to clear areas that have been impacting public safety. So we've been looking at areas along county roads adjacent to residences, adjacent to forest parks, and we'll come on to Gosford in a minute or two. The scale of the damage, basically it was from Kilkeel to Ballykelly. It was right across the Forest Estate, with probably the North Antrim Hills being the least affected. We found that most of the areas that were affected very badly in terms of damage were the faster growing soils in Fermanagh, Kesh, Lack, Favour Royal, but then the older estates, the Gosfords of this world, the Castlewellens, Tullymores, where the big old trees and older and more firm, stable trees didn't really stand up well in 130-mile-an-hour red warning ones. So that's the scale of the damage that we're facing. Immediately after the storm, we worked with the councils, we worked with DFI Roads, we were liaising with the police and other statutory agencies, to get help to people, get areas opened up, and that was a primary focus probably for about the first month. The availability of our harvesting fleet, we have 4 mechanical harvesters. Since that date have been full-time on storm damage and will be at that type of work for the foreseeable future. To equate our harvesting programme across the Forest Service, normally it's between 800 and 1,000 hectares per year. So we have a lot of timber on the floor that needs to be recovered. So that's where our focus is going to be. The benefits of it is that through our long-term contracts, we are fit to salvage that timber and put it to the market where it hasn't been severely damaged or one-snapped, up the stems. The forest that probably suffered the most catastrophic damage, probably the acacias, the lacs, where probably 40% of that forest have been damaged. To give you a scale in Gosford's about 252 hectares. There's about 230 of that planted. Of that, there's 51 hectares has been cleared through both from Storm Isha last January and Storm Owen this January. That operations, we were unthinning in Gosford when the storm kicked off, so we were able to liaise closely with the council and the council officials at that time to see which were the most used and most accessible paths to focus our clearance operations on. Those initial clearance operations started probably the Monday morning or the Tuesday morning after the storm and continued to end of February. We were aware in Gosford of the importance of the park, the recreation facilities, and the number of people that use Gosford on a daily basis for their walks. We've met councillors, council officials there with our regular meetings. So we were acutely aware of that. The issue that we had was that there was only a finite resource. The storm didn't just affect the Forest Service, it affected the wider island of Ireland. So that contractor base is a finite resource. And when you've 4,000 hectares blowing down and everybody looking, everything cleared within a week, it's not going to happen. So we had to prioritise, and that's currently where we're at across the Forest Service at the minute. The prioritisation. Gosford, we would have classed Gosford as an area of continuous cover, a forest where we had never had any intention of having large areas of clearfill. What we were trying to do was to manage the trees in such a way that we kept forest cover there all the time by gradually removing some of the trees, encouraging regrowth of trees either through natural regeneration or supplementary planning to change the shape and the species diversity over probably a 60-year period. That all changed in 24 hours on the 24th of January. So along with many other areas. So what we are actually doing now is that we're analysing where the priorities for the clearfells are. We're trying to get our new felling coops into place, even in areas where we never intended to fell trees. Gosford being one. Mountain Lodge, Darkley was another area where it's been severely impacted within the council and the council facilities. But you had the likes of Mount Stewart, Castlewellan, large areas of forest that we wanted to keep big trees because that's what people recreate on. They don't want to walk through scrub or whatever. They want to go through big trees. So that's what we had in these areas, but we don't have it now, so we have to look how we do it differently going forward. That planning process is ongoing, and I would hope by the tail end of this year that we will have most of the plans in place to see us through the next 4 or 5 years. In Gosford, as I said, there was 51 hectares blown down. Primarily, it was the conifer component blew down, a lot of Norway spruce. What that has given us is it's given us the opportunity to speed up our transformation and our species diversity within the forest. We will be planting different species. There will be opportunities for more native woodland. There will also be opportunities for a wider range of conifer species that in the area, like the Scots Pines, Douglas Firs, Western Red Cedars, we have all those opportunities that we're exploring. And in Gosford, you have the opportunity to do that because of the soils and the fertility of it. We also then, in our design, we have to look at what we done, what we carried out in the 50s and 60s in our planting, where we planted right up to the edges of county roads, the forest walls, how that impacted. Do we really want large conifer trees with the potential to impact county roads going forward? The other utilities then, NIE, there's a major NIE line through the middle of Gosford. We'll be looking at that, how we can redesign and regenerate our forests that has a less of a adverse impact on those utility networks. Now, across the Forest Service, if we talk about utilities, Forest Service have about 174 kilometres of NIE lines across this estate. So that's the scale of the issue, and it's not just in Gosford. Gosford, there's about, I think it's about 400 metres or close on it. But that's the challenge, and that's what we have to look at going forward. We will be working closely with the council officials in it, in Gosford. The harvesting operations in Gosford have completed, i.e. the felling operations finished last week. The extraction of the timber is due to finish this week or early next week. The removal of the timber to the market will hopefully be finished by late summer, September time. And what I can say then is there won't be any more planned interventions, harvesting interventions in Gosford for the foreseeable future, because we've that much elsewhere, and also we need to look what we're going to do and try and get the areas established before we go back in again. The other aspect in Gosford that is very high risk for forest management at the minute is ash dieback. The ash stands in Gosford are probably the best in Ireland, if not the British Isles, for their form, their vigour and whatever. Unfortunately, they are severely impacted by ash dieback. So there may well be interventions required there going into the future. It first came into Gosford in about 2019, 2020 was the first signs of major ash dieback. So that's a factor that we'll have to consider going forward. I've spoke there at the opportunities. We have the opportunities now to look at species diversity. We can't get away from the fact that Gosford still will be a commercial forest. There still will be timber requirements for there. If you take the timber industry, Forest Service currently supply about 400,000 tonne per year, an income of about £11 million, with add-on benefits of about 8-9 times that to the Northern Ireland PLC through timber processing, timber exporting. So it is vitally important that that aspect of commerciality remains within the forests. So going forward, that will also take place in Gosford. We will be replanting with conifers where it is appropriate, but we will be looking to increase the levels of broadleaf cover in it. I would love to say it will be completely all native woodlands. I'd love to say that, but given the current bio threats to our native woodlands, ash dieback being one of them, I can't promise that going forward. The other major impact for the forest management is that we never, I talked earlier about continuous cover, and we wanted to keep large trees there for as long as possible. We now have 25% of the forest where that is not an option, so we have to start again and go again. And people need to remember that was the first red warning that we ever had. And since 2024, we've had 4 named warnings that have significantly damaged the forest estate. My fear is if we get a few more of them over the next couple of 3 years, the trees that are still standing may not be standing going forward because of the holes that have been created and wind gaps and stuff is severe. Within the recreation then, the vast majority of the recreation trails have been opened. All the walking trails have been opened. There's one bicycle cycle trail not opened. That is because we're still extracting timber from it. We intend to have that extraction process finished. If it's not finished this week, it'll be finished next week. We will then remove the debris and stuff from the cycle tracks. So I would hope that the cycle tracks will be available to the council officials for use from the end of August. I would really hope that. So hopefully we'll have a full selection of trails in it from the end of August on. So that's where we're Gosford. As I say, it's not an isolated case across the Forest Service. We have been majorly impacted across the state. I'm getting the thing, so that'll do me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that useful update, John Joe. We have a couple of questions here. I want to bring in, first of all, Councillor Keith Radcliffe.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I'd like to just put on record my thanks to the officers for facilitating my request for this presentation in Council tonight. And I'd also like to put on record my thanks to Jonathan, all the officers and the staff at Gosford who really went the extra miles whenever this first occurred, because there was a huge amount of clearing up to just get the park able to facilitate people coming back in it. So I'd like to put on record my thanks to all the staff, Jonathan, that you have there in your team. I'd also like to welcome John, Joe and Dawson here tonight. I had the privilege of going out and seeing the council staff and John, Joe, whenever this storm had hit a few days afterwards, and it was absolutely unbelievable, the devastation that was caused around Gosford. It wasn't really until you went out to see it that you could see the devastation. And as you said there, John, Joe, 51 acres destroyed. That's a fifth of the park. That is huge amount of trees lost. And it's so sad, because I believe Gosford is one of the jewels in the crown of this council whenever it comes to parks. It's a fantastic facility, used by thousands of people every year. And there's no magic wand to fix it overnight. I realise that there, and I'd like to applaud you for the amount of work you have carried out. I was round up there actually on Friday. And there's a huge amount of work going on. But I have just a couple of questions. They might seem a bit strange or whatever, but you could maybe enlighten us maybe with this here. I was just wondering, how many trees are you planning to plant initially coming into maybe the new year or whatever? And is there trees actually that, I'm sure there's some species of trees that actually do grow quicker than others, and is there any way to try to speed up the process? I know there's going to be no quick fix, but is there any way of trying to get trees planted that will grow quickly and that will hopefully long-rooted trees and will be there for many, many years to come? And thanks again for all your work. Thank you. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Okay, John Joe, we'll bring you in again, please.
Yeah, on your first question, how many trees we're going to plant? It's 51 hectares, which is, on average, across the forest estate, if we're planting them commercially, we'll be looking to plant about 2,500 trees to the hectare. So you're talking 100,000 trees minimum. But that will not be the case in Gosford, because there will be areas where we'll be looking differently, and we'll be keeping back from roadside edges, especially around the back roads. We'll be keeping back from power lines, but we will be planting smaller stature broadleafs in those areas, but not at the same density as we would be planting the commercial conifer crops. The split between the conifer crop and the broadleaf crop, I can't give you that at the minute because I just don't know, because we're still working on our plans. Species growth, if we're looking quick trees growing quick, yes, you want to be planting the high yield class conifers such as Sitya spruce and plant the whole thing. You'll have trees and 10-foot high trees within 5 years. That is not the way to do it, because we need species diversity. It will take time, but what I would say is within 5 to 10 years, you will start to see the trees growing. You will start to see significant changes, even less than that, even within the 4 or 5 year period, you'll start to see significant changes. The big challenge that we're going to have in Gosford is because the soil is so fertile, weed growth and controlling, keeping the weeds, whatever trees we do plant, get away. But yes, there is trees that you could plant that you could have fairly significant tree cover, but it's not the right thing to do. You plant poplars or something like that that'll just shoot out of the ground, willows, but they're not the right species. What we want to do is, whatever we're going to do, we want to do it right.
Thank you for that. The next speaker is Alderman Gareth Wilson.
Thanks very much, guys, and thanks for your presentation. It's just, I suppose, more on what you've said there about weed growth. I'd be keen to see that it didn't just become a jungle. Big areas are just left to grow wild, and then if you're trying to plant saplings in there, then they're not going to stand much of a chance just with the amount of sunshine they're going to be getting because they're so exposed. Personally, I think that part up through the Tour and the Trees site, the more isolated camper site, where you're reaching the top of that hill there, I think it's actually done the park a favour, having that clearance that has allowed a lot more sunshine. It's a lot brighter to walk along, I know that fact. And I'm just wondering, in terms of that area, is there other, rather than, so I take a wee breather and look, is there a better way to utilise that space up on the hill there that would be more useful as a recreation zone? Because I know in terms of mountain biking, all the trails are, down through the forest. Is there an opportunity there to develop something more like Rostrava, something more challenging for mountain bikers, something more man-made in that area with some higher drops and some more technical stages? I'm wondering, is that an option other than just replanting it out and it growing like a wilderness for 20 years before the tree cover establishes and the weeds sort of die off? Because I know it's going to be fairly intensive in terms of trying to keeping that, from turning into a wilderness. And also just round by the rivers and stuff, there's a lot of trees down, they're just lying. And it's difficult for people, kids and stuff, just accessing the wee streams and that. I seen it on Sunday there when we're down in Sunday afternoon, clambering out over big, trees that have fallen down, and that's months later and they're not cleared up. I know I get the bigger stuff, there's a commercial element to that, but there's a commercial element for our council in terms of the recreational advantage to getting, the wee riverside trails cleared of fallen trees, because I think it just looks untidy and looks through all there, and I would love to see those types of trees cleared up and took away. And I know you can't get the big harvester down through there, so it is a wee bit more labour intensive, but it's going to take saws and it's going to take a few guys in the ground to get them cleared up. But I'd love an assurance tonight if that could be done, because I think it's way beyond time that it was done. Cheers and thanks.
Before we bring you back in there, John Joe, I'm just going to take the other two questions and you can take them in blocks. The next speaker is Alderman Paul Berry.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and could I also thank the Forestry Service for coming tonight. It's more a word of appreciation to them, to John Joe, to Dawson and his team, because I know they have been working very closely on the ground with our staff over an immense period of time. Gosford Forest Park's never going to be the same again for many, many years to come. You've already said at least 10 years. We recognise that, and I know we tend to be parochial, because when you drive around Gosford, every side of it, it's depressing, and I have no doubt for you guys it was even more depressing given the love and passion and desire that you have for all the forestries across Northern Ireland. So I commend you on the work that you do and are continuing to do in what is an unprecedented time that we have ever seen, and hopefully we'll never see again. But I know Gosford, when you walk through it or you drive past it, it's depressing. But I'm glad here tonight And I've no doubt about it tonight, but I'm glad that you are here tonight, that you have that plan. It's going to be a long plan. It's going to be a tough time. There's been a serious amount of work done in Gosford and up up on in other sites that we have a connection to. But I think it's one of those situations that we will continue to work closely with yourselves, but you guys are the experts when it comes to planting trees. And I think just as councillors, it's important that we work collectively with yourselves through our council colleagues. But I just want to thank you and wish you well, because it was an unprecedented time. The operation that you have put in already is crazy, but I have no doubt it was a tough time for your staff too, and the dangers that they were put in, given the immense pressure that was put upon them to get paths open in many forests across Northern Ireland. But I just want to not a question, but thank you for what you have done to date, and looking forward to the plans that are going to roll out for Gosford in the next 2 to 5 to 4 to whatever years. Thank you.
Okay, and the last question comes from Councillor Peter Lavery.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I just want to pass on the thanks as well to John, Joe and the Dawson for coming here, and all the forestry service team and council staff who have been involved in the process over the last six months or so. I suppose I just wanted to come in. I'm not a rep for that area, and like my 3 previous speakers, but Gosford Park is so beloved that it has a reach not just across the Borough, but people outside Northern Ireland. So when issues always happen in Gosford, I think every member probably gets questions about it. It's that well used recreationally and so on. But the question I do want to ask you, sort of touched on it yourself, about how we've had so many of these type of storms recently, and the concern that we could have a lot more of these in the years to come. Will your planting operation take into account the likes of those trees which would be more hardy or robust in terms of these storms coming along? I know you mentioned in terms of areas of planting, but will the types of trees, or the likes of the indigenous Irish trees more hardy compared to some of the other conifer types you were sort of talking about there, or will that all be taken into your account when designing? And there is maybe an opportunity, as sort of was touched on by maybe Alderman Wilson, to almost design certain parts of the park to make it more robust if these kind of extreme weather events do continue to occur in a frequent fashion, as unfortunately it's looking the way the climate's going that might be the case. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, John, Joe, if you want to take those in block then, please.
Yes, well, I'll thank you, Councillor Berry, for the kind words, and it did break our heart to see it across everywhere. Councillor Lavery, to answer your question there on the species and one firmness of trees, the storm that we had was no respecter of species. We had 200-year-old beech oak snapped in half. We've had 20-year-old conifers blowing down. We've had 10-year-old willows blowing down. So, yes, we'll try and get the right tree for the right place. And what we will be looking for is an increased resilience across the board. And the other query then in regard to Gosford, I'll let my colleague Mr. Jones answer that one. But just to enlighten councillors and inform them, where you see trees lying for no apparent reason, that they're just lying there, you have to remember the bugs and the beasties that live in those trees, that use them as their homes. They're not there just because we couldn't be bothered to take them away. They are there for a reason. And if there's no safety reasons for it, I seen a post on a Facebook, Native Irish Trees, I think it was, where my colleague to my right was complimented brilliantly for leaving probably a 5-metre stump that had bracket fungus growing out of it. It was posing no danger to anybody, but people recognised the fungi and the invertebrate life that was going to be in that. So to have a sterilised area is not what you want in a living environment. So I'll pass over to Dawson in relation to the potential for increasing the mountain bike area and the path area that you were talking. I'm still red.
Councillor Wilson's question on replanting and the issue with vegetation regrowth. What we try and do, if we can, obviously we have to develop the replanting plans, is go in early and try and get it planted before the regrowth really starts. We've also got other techniques on that there. We'd also go in there and probably mound the site, which is a case of lifting soil and creating a mound, which then gives the trees a weed-free planting position, and it should keep them weed-free for 3, 4, 5 years sort of thing. So that really helps them, and then once they get to that stage, 3, 4 years, they'll be up out of the weed growth. As far as the recreation development goes, we have a really good partnership working with most of the councils, and the ABC is no different. So if there are development opportunities that the council feel that they want to explore, there's no issue. We have 2 formal meetings with ABC Council every year where those sort of development opportunities can be brought forward. And certainly if that's something that the council want to pursue going forward, is some other form of development in Gosford, there's no issues at all. We will quite happily listen to any proposals. And from that there, then it'll just be a matter of going through all the checks and balances where planning's needed or whatever. As far as you'd mentioned trees across rivers as well. I suppose from a lease and licence point of view that we have with councils, we will certainly, as part of our harvesting operations, if we're in that area and the council want certain things removed and tidied up, we will try and facilitate that there. But from a safety point of view, it's probably up to the council as part of their tree safety management to identify hazards that are a hazard to the public in there, and so it's really up to the council then to come to us and say, look, we want to remove these trees, we've done a tree safety management report, or there's a dead tree that are going to fall out. And we do have very formal processes in place with the council. You know, they provide us with tree safety management plans, recreation plans, that they're managing the recreation facilities, doing their safety checks as well. So we do have those in place. Sorry, just about the replanting then as well. Whenever we're replanting area, we are trying now going forward to build up resilience in the forest is I suppose the word for it. So we are trying to build in species, multiple species, so you're not having the same issues that we're having now with one species being dominant in a forest and then one disease comes in and wipes it out. So for the likes of Ouse disease, it's really unfortunate that Ouse tree disease has taken hold, because it was one tree we could have used very, very well with continuous cover. In Gosford, we don't have that anymore, so we don't. So we're going to have to rely on other species to plant, which is fine. You know, there's a lot of, and we do find with, you know, nature is very resilient as well. So at the moment, it does look like a devastation, destruction. Give it a year or 2 years' time, there will be other opportunities for other wildlife, you know, coming through. You know, they will take advantage of the different growth, the different light that's coming in as well.
Okay, can I thank you both for presenting to Council tonight? I think it's been very worthwhile, and we appreciate it, and thank you, and we wish you all the best. And moving on then, I've been made aware that Councillor Ashley Mallon is now online as well, members. So we move on to agenda item 5.1, and that's committee minutes. Minutes of the Performance and Audit Committee held on the 19th of June be taken as read and approved as a correct record. Councillor Alexander as chair, are you happy to propose? Thank you. And Councillor Mulholland as vice chair, are you happy to second? Oh, sorry? Part of it, okay, so we need someone else. Is there another member who was there on the night? Councillor Donnelly, Councillor Kennedy. Okay, you're happy to second? Thank The light's bad back there. Okay, thank you for that. Just before we move on, I want to raise an issue around PA 21/2025, and my colleague Alderman Greenfield had raised this in the committee. It relates to the Audit Office for Northern Ireland in relation to guidance around an independent chair of the Audit Committee. Personally, in 24 years on and off in this council, I've always found every chair, regardless of what political party, to act with integrity and impartiality, and I would be concerned if it was mandatory that we had to pick an independent chair from outside council. Council is different to the civil service and some of these other public bodies, but I just wanted to put that up there. Is there any officer tonight can give us any guidance on that, Chief Executive, or is it something somebody can come back in relation to that again, please? Happy enough to do that? Okay, bring in the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I know that it's something that Mr O'Neill did raise during the course of the meeting, and Alderman Greenfield questioned him on it, and members have the note of that exchange. We certainly are happy to pick that up. I know it's something that is only emerging from the Audit Office, so we have regular contact with officers in the Audit Office, and we can feed back on that, Lord Mayor.
Thank you for that, Chief Executive. Personally, I think it would be a derogatory step to take it away from elected members, but that's up to, let's see how it goes. Are members happy then to agree on the recommendations? Yeah, agreed, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 2, minutes of the Planning and Regulatory Committee meeting held on the 2nd of July, to be taken as read as a correct record. Councillor Kevin Savage has an apology in tonight. Councillor Mary O'Dowd, are you happy to propose? Thank you. And is there someone else in the committee happy to second? Alderman Wilson, thank you. And are we agreed to adopt the recommendations? Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 6 is the Chief Executive's report. There are 4 items for decision, so I'm going to bring in the Chief Executive to take us through the first one.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and good evening, members. You have the report in front of you, and really just to pick up the main points, it's a session that NILGA are organising an Insights Exchange 2nd of October in Dungannon, the topic of that being embedding social value in councils. Council has been allocated up to 7 attendees, a mixture of both councillors and officers. From the officer side, NILGA are recommending that there'd be somebody from procurement, economic development, community development, and from our policy side. So, Lord Mayor, tonight we're seeking a decision with regard to the political representation at it, and the recommendation is that it would be the Chair of Governance, Resources and Strategy, or the Vice Chair or their nominee, and similarly for the Chair of Economic Development, Regeneration, and the Chair of Community and Wellbeing, as I say, either the Vice Chair or their nominees as well, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring in Alderman Glenbar.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to note that I am chair of one of the committees mentioned, so I'll take part. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any proposals in relation to this item? Councillor Keith Hockian.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Yeah, I'm happy to propose.
Proposed by Councillor Hockian. Anyone seconded by Alderman Berry and agreed? Thank you. Moving on then to 6.2, which is the external consultation schedule, and we'll bring Elaine Gillespie in to present this report.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and good evening, members. There are 2 parts to tonight's report. The first is Appendix A, and this provides the list of consultation documents as of July received from external organisations for consideration by Council. There are 9 on this month's schedule with recommendations for how each are handled. Also contained within the report is the DFC consultation on shaping sustainable places. Attached as Appendix 2 is the consultation document, which summarises its purpose as follows. That Shaping Sustainable Places aims to create a flagship programme of interventions to arrest the decline of our valued village, town and city centres, engaging communities at the earliest stages of planning for change, developing solutions to specific place-based challenges through funding local physical and infrastructure projects. The consultation includes a vision and 4 key principles around being strategic, sustainable, integrated and participative. The consultation is for 10 years with a review after 5. It states that 3 departments of Department for Communities, DAERA and Department for Infrastructure will co-fund a programme over a 10-year period, contributing a minimum of 5 million per year each in the investment. A further minimum contribution of 10% would be requested from local councils, creating an initial fund of around 165 million. In addition to the core funding, it's proposed to have a potential additional competitive funding mechanism. The Shaping Sustainable Places would require local councils in partnership with local communities to develop detailed plans for its prioritised places, and these plans then would be required to take a place-making approach. And the Ministerial Advisory Group for the Architecture and Built Environment of Northern Ireland's Living High Street Craft Kit is put forward as a potential place-making approach. A response to this consultation, they're all done via preset online consultation forms, and a draft of the proposed council response has been included as Appendix 3. In summary, members, the draft council response includes broad agreement for the vision and principles. It challenges the need to use the Living High Street Craft Kit as the place-making approach, as we already have a well-established place planning process, which has been shaped by the Department for Communities through community planning. We welcome the long-term funding, but raise concerns that they need to ensure departments are partners and not simply funders to the process, and the need for government departments to undertake ongoing maintenance and resourcing of programmes. The resourcing covers staffing and revenue requirements as well as another concern that's raised. We highlight the need for true partnership working and not relying on a funder-deliverer relationship, and go on to raise concerns for populations under 1,000, making suggestions for clustering to be considered, and these echoes concerns that have already been raised directly with DFC following requests from members earlier this year. So there are 2 recommendations, members, associated with the report. The first is recommendations that member approve the recommendation from processing the consultation documents in schedule for July, which is Appendix 1, and then secondly that it's recommended that members approve the draft response to the DFC Shaping Sustainable Place consultation, which is attached as Appendix 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. At this point, I want to bring in Councillor Julie Flaherty.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Elaine, for your report, as always. I do want to refer to something in Appendix 1, if I just may. You probably know which one it is. It's number 6 regarding the baby loss certificates. I have mentioned that a couple of times in this chamber over the last number of years, I have to say. It was talked about, goodness me, whenever I was starting to talk about the Children's Funeral Fund all those years ago. The consultation does close in September, and I have already responded because, like many parents who have lost children under 24 weeks, there are different views, but we're being asked for them. So if we are being asked for them, then we tell them. So I do implore anyone out there that the chances there for you to put your views in, and connected to the consultation are also some links for any sort of help or support that any bereaved parent may feel that they need. So I did want to highlight that, and I know we'll have a corporate response of some description if we have a chat about that, Elaine, perhaps. Also, I'm happy to propose your draft recommendation there as well. If I can get a seconder, then we can get that one processed. Thank you.
Okay, I want to bring in Councillor Keith Radcliffe at this time.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. If I could just raise about 6.2, Apex 1 and point 9, Qualities Commission for Northern Ireland. I had raised this obviously before in the council about the toilet situation and the policy, and what happened was a group of girls was booked the Civic Centre building for a dance school. So them girls range from the age of 5 till young ladies at 18. And thanks again to the staff here and council, provided a fantastic facility. Everything went extremely well, but as we all know, there's no change in facilities here, so they had to use the ladies' toilets. And I was shocked and concerned whenever I found out that the policy for the council allows biological males into those toilets. Now, while the Equality Commission has issued interim guidance, it is important to note that distinguished legal authorities have made clear that the Northern Ireland Protocol has no bearing on the UK's Supreme Court judgment in this matter. Indeed, the newsletter has reported that the Northern Ireland Assembly Commission has received legal advice indicating that a policy based on self-declared gender identity rather than biological reality is incompatible with existing law. Should the Council fail to ensure its policies are in line with the law, it exposes itself to significant legal risk. In such circumstances, the cost of obtaining authoritative legal advice would not only be justified, but would represent a prudent and necessary measure to safeguard the financial and legal interests of our ratepayers. I would also draw members' attention to a recent development involving the BBC's The State of Us podcast, which previously commented on remarks that I made in this very chamber concerning this issue. Since our last meeting, the BBC has been forced into a rare and significant climb down following a complaint lodged by the TUV party regarding an episode of The State of Us originally published on BBC Sounds on the 9th of May 2025. Far from impartial journalism, the programme leaned heavily into trans activist talking points. Following our detailed complaint, the BBC has edited the original podcast to remove key content it could not stand over. Notably, this includes the remarks presenter Tara Mills, who questioned why I raised concerns about council toilet policy in the wake of the Supreme Court ruling. That line, among others, has now been removed from the broadcast. This should serve as a cautionary example to this council. We would be wise to avoid missteps, and I propose Officers Commissioner report with a view to obtaining King's Council opinion on how the Supreme Court judgment applies to policies in this council. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, we'll move on to Councillor Peter Lavery at this time.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Well, I suppose I'm going to break my contribution down into two parts. Firstly, by seconding Councillor Flaherty's proposal that we accept the officer recommendation, and to speak highly of Elaine's team and the response which her team's quite articulately summed up regarding difficulties of DFC funding maybe in town village centres and so on, where their format of given funding and programmes is maybe out of step with the reality that high streets and so on are the difficulties high streets are facing, and the difficulties you mentioned settlements under 1,000 population so on, which many of which are growing in this borough, how difficult they find things, how difficult they find it to shape their own place and their own society. And you touched on it, Elaine. I just point DSA to copy whatever council's doing in our place plans, because as you've touched on, that's allowed a real channel for local communities, local businesses, local groups to take part in what they want to shape their society, their villages, their towns for the future. So happy to second on that point and so on. And just to come on to Councillor Radcliffe's point or his suggestion, if I remember right, when I'm looking at this, officers are considering a response already on this matter, which is going to be brought to the next council. It's quite a complex matter. It needs to be handled compassionately. So maybe some guidance from officers on that would be appreciated.
Okay, thank you. And I'll bring in finally Councillor Kate Evans.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I was coming in to second Councillor Flaherty there, but I was beat to the punch. But I'm also happy to second Councillor Ratcliffe's request as well. I think if we're going to sign off on this response, then we would need some legal advice before we do so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll bring in Gillian Gillespie again at this point.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'll maybe first deal with the query from Councillor Flaherty on number 6 on the schedule around the Department of Finance's consultation on the baby loss certificate scheme. Councillor Flaherty, we actually have that for noting in the current schedule. The rationale for that being that Council had opportunity last month in the overall guidance from the Department of Finance on the changes to registration services where they'd asked specifically around that. So Council has already made comment on that. Now, if members feel that there's need for us to make other comments or to reiterate those comments under the current consultation, they may want to put that forward, but at the minute it's there for noting. And I believe then my colleague Kate is going to come in on number 9. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In respect of point 9 on the consultation schedule, it is a matter that's being considered and a report will be brought back to August's full council meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Kate. Are members content around those points? Okay, it has been proposed and seconded, and I take it that's for both aspects of the report. Yep, content. Okay, thank you. Move on then. 6.3 is our Water Quality Improvement Scheme Grant Letter of Offer. I'm going to bring Marcus Malley in to present this report.
Chair and members, thank you. This refers to a letter of offer for the Water Quality Improvement Scheme, and we ask that members note the report and accede to the letter of offer. For a number of years, we've been working with various local groups to improve water quality. We had an opportunity because Armagh Angling Club, funded by Northern Ireland Environment Agency, were asked to run an event at Armagh City Hotel and were funded to do so. We ran the event for them and we invited a number of local community groups to come along to that to find out about the grants available. As part of that, we invited the funder and previous successful applicants to talk about the work they'd done. So we got over 50 representatives of the local community to come along to that, and the funder subsequently asked us to assist and support the groups with the applications and with the delivery of the funding. So officers also applied ourselves for some money through the Water Quality Improvement Scheme to support community groups through the acquisition of a small citizen science laboratory to monitor and test their water quality. And we also applied for a survey of the River Callan. As a result, there was 5 applications were successful, including the one from Council. We also had a successful application from Armagh Angling Club, from Callan Angling Club, and we encouraged the angling clubs in the River Bann to join together and put in a joint proposal, which they did on behalf of Banbridge Angling Club, which was successful. We also had a successful application from Clocker Angling Club, which is low outside our borough, is part of our Peace Plus remitted area of the Blackwater. We subsequently met with the 2 unsuccessful groups, Keady Angling Club and Eden Derry Club, to see if we could access funding for them, and we have been successful. We think with Keady Angling Club, we're hoping to do some water quality improvement around Carna Forest Park, which is obviously in our own interest as well. So those have all been successful. It's about a total of about £90,000 has been acquired for ourselves and for the other clubs. We have been offered £17,000 of eligible costs. including material, equipment and machinery for the Citizen Science Laboratory, and also for a survey of the Callan River. The match funding will be made up in kind from staff time, and existing staff will deliver the project. We don't anticipate any financial or legal problems, and we do think that the project will have a positive effect on climate change. So I'd ask that members note the report and accede to the letter of offer.
Okay, thank you. Marcus, I want to bring in Councillor Liam Mackle.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm happy to propose a recommendation. Anything that improves our water quality and the angling offer we have locally has to be welcomed, so happy to propose.
Thank you. And Alderman Paul Berry.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to thank Marcus for his report. Marcus works tirelessly in this particular department and is brilliant at his job and working with the angling clubs and all the clubs connected, so I'm happy to second it.
Okay, thank you. And that's proposed, seconded and agreed. Thank you. Moving on to 6.4, which is DAERA public consultation on the draft Third Northern Ireland Climate Change Adaptation Programme. And I'm going to ask Claire Duddy to present this report.
Good evening, members. Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is a DAERA consultation which just launched in June and relates, as you say, to the draft Third Northern Ireland Climate Change Adaptation Programme, known as NICAP 3. So there is a onus on the government departments to basically produce objectives, policies, proposals and timelines to take forward policies in response to recent UK climate change risk assessment. So to fulfil these legal requirements, DAERA has led the development of a series of coordinated adaptation programmes, which are known as NICAP. This consultation relates to the third iteration of this, and under the consultation are a number of key themes set out. These include natural capital, food security, infrastructure services, people and built environment, and disruption to business and supply chains. So a response has been drafted, which is included in Appendix 1. This has been produced by the Climate Team in Council and has taken board feedback from Sustainable NI and NELGA, as well as feedback from other colleagues across the Council. So the consultation closes on the 4th of August of this year, so I'd welcome any feedback. So you're asked to consider the report and hopefully approve the draft response as set out in Appendix 1. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Claire. I want to bring in Councillor Tim McClelland.
Lord Mayor, thank you for bringing me in, and thank you to Claire and her team for all the work that they've done in terms of working up our response. Lord Mayor, a couple of comments, and then I have one addition or perhaps amendment that I would like. In terms of my comments, our response quite rightly says that from a legislative point of view, all of this is anchored in the Climate Acts of 2008 and 2022. And as members will know, the act that was formulated in 2022 put some quite robust, if not some would say impossible targets, particularly for the agri-sector to meet in terms of net zero by 2050. And I suppose questions were already been asked in terms of targets been changed and so on. And then we had the recent court judgment regarding the A5 and how the 2022 Act impacted on that particular decision. So I suppose I would pose the question, Lord Mayor, is change coming to the Climate Act of 2022? And I will just leave my comments there. In terms of our specific response at question 15, where it talks about integrating climate adoption into agricultural subsidies, I suppose, Lord Mayor,
this has been the direction of travel in recent times, away from production agriculture and towards environmental measures, and that's to be welcomed. But the degree of realism that I would probably bring to all of this is that adoption measures must be practical, they must be well proven, they must be suited to Northern Ireland farming conditions, as well as actually been effective. So, and unfortunately, in terms of some of the schemes that have come out, and I know that farming with nature is a scheme that farming businesses can join. And bearing in mind there's 20,000 farmers in Northern Ireland, and the latest information I have is only 200 applications have been received. It has a closing date of the 4th of August. So farmers clearly are voting with their feet and not getting involved in that scheme because it offers little for them. So that said, I would propose that our answer at 15 is added to that adoption measures must be practical, well proven and suited to Northern Irish farming conditions. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Councillor Peter Lavery.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor McLellan for his contribution and to officers for drafting this response. It's quite a thorough response. I'm happy enough to second Councillor McLellan's addition to it. And I would just remind Councillor McLellan that it was the DUP DAERA Minister who brought through the Climate Act 2022, one of his party colleagues, Edwin Poots, I believe. We are in a changing climate. You only have to go back to the start of today's council meeting, Lord Mayor, when DAERA outlined our concern about climate events and how it unfortunately has impacted us in Gosford Forest and could likely impact further, as you know, we are continuing to be subject to climate change. So it is important that we do try to do what we can locally to ensure that we as a society or as an agri-food community are ready for any potential changes that come along the road. But again, thank you to officers. You know, some of them are here, like some Marks, who are heavily involved in that whole biodiversity sector and agri-food sector in our borough. So content to second, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lavery. Maybe there's hope for the tug-of-war team yet, pulling in the one direction. I bring in Alderman Gareth Wilson.
Yeah, it's just a point on the climate change aspect and the fact, I think it's ignored mostly in the media. You don't hear it referred to that often, but there were two bills tabled at the same time. You had a DAERA bill, which was rather sensible at the time it was tabled, and then you had a competing bill from the Green Party that could not have been fawned over enough by all the other parties except the Democratic Unionist Party and some other unionists, by the way, as well. But coming down the tracks, if we hadn't had the DAERA bill tabled, you would have had the Green Party bill, which was even more ridiculous, I have to say. But that's ignored. Nobody talks about that. So how did the situation resolve itself? It was, you could call it a halfway house. You know, semi-realism had to step in at some point in the argument. So we had a bill that, yes, wasn't as optimistic or overly optimistic as the Green Party one, but was more realistic than what we were going to be left with in the Assembly at that period if we hadn't come to an agreement. So I know that's boring and nobody really wants to talk about it, but it's the reality. So we have a situation where the targets are extremely challenging, but if we hadn't had that situation, we'd have had a completely ridiculous set of circumstances that nobody could even have stood over should they put a clown's mask on, to be perfectly honest. So I think that just needs to be put on the record and stop talking rubbish.
And you have done that. Councillor McLellan, and don't throw away a victory when you have it here.
No, Lord Mayor, just simply I'll have to look on the way home. Is the two moons in the sky this evening, with Councillor Lavery and myself actually agreeing. But anyway, thank you.
Okay, moving on quickly to Councillor Kyle Savage.
No. Yeah, Lord Mayor, just thanks for letting me in there. Just for a point of clarity and a conflict of interest, perhaps. I'm a recipient of a single farm payment, so I think it wouldn't be right for me to comment on a DARE report going through here. So just to make that clear and have that noted. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, noted, Councillor Savage. So we have proposed, seconded, and we are in agreement. No, sorry. Alderman Gordon Kennedy wants in. Go ahead.
Just following along the lines of Councillor Kyle here, I'm a recipient as well, so.
Okay, thank you for that. And for a third time, but very briefly, Councillor McClellan.
Indeed, Lord Mayor, as am I, a recipient of single farm payment.
I was hoping that's what it was. Councillor Fergal Donnelly.
I'm also a recipient of single farm payment.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, it's been proposed, seconded, and are we agreed, members? Agreed, thank you. Moving on then to agenda item 7 is the schedule of correspondence. Correspondence from 2 other councils. Are members content that we note the contents, and if there are any comments, to send them through to member services? First of all, I have Councillor Ian Wilson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's just on item 7.3 in regards to the retention of the post office in Guildford. It's good to see now that services is retained for the people of the village, and it will be opening on Tuesday, 12th of August in the new Eurospar. So that's a welcome development that the community there still retain their post office counter services. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are we content to note items 7.3 to 7.6 then, members? Noted. Okay, thank you. Agenda item 8, there are 8.1 and 8.2. I'm minded to leave them until after we deal with an item in confidential business and come back to them after that, because there's a link there, so there is. Agenda item 8.3 is the renewal lease at Acton Interpretive Centre on the Newry Portadown Canal and the grave certificates. Are members content to take these 2 together? Alderman Berry, proposed, thank you, and seconded. Alderman Mrs Tinsley, and agreed, thank you. Okay, members, can I have a proposer and seconder to go into committee for consideration of the confidential items of business? Proposed by Councillor Radcliffe, seconded by Councillor McClelland. Members and listeners to the audio feed, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into confidential session of the Council. This means that we will be turning off the public feed of the meeting, and this will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask ICT officers to turn off the audio feed and confirm with me when the confidential section of the meeting can proceed? Thank you. Can I have a proposer and a seconder to adopt the decisions taken in committee? Proposed by Councillor Lavery, seconded by Alderman Tinsley, and agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 11 is any other relevant business. We have 6 items tonight. The first one is the Southern Trust cervical cancer screening review, and that's Councillor Judy Flaherty.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you all for once again giving me this opportunity to air this issue in our chamber this evening. An issue I first raised, it's coming up now on 2 years, when letters started dropping through the doors of 17,500 women in our borough and beyond, letters which kept coming, Lord Mayor, and reports that are promised. We do stand now at a critical juncture for women's healthcare. The cytology screening review has thus far revealed shocking underperformance in smear test analysis conducted across every health trust in Northern Ireland, not just the Southern Trust. This isn't a one-off failure confined to this area, this is systemic. The facts are very clear. From autumn 2023, approximately 17,500 women in the Southern Trust region had smear samples re-examined after initial misreads, as they're called, between 2008 and 2021. Tragically, as we know, we have lost 2 fabulous local women, while others developed cancer following missed abnormalities. More recently, as pointed out, the analysis confirmed that all 5 trusts have recorded episodes of screener underperformance, calling into question the integrity of the programme. And yet in all of this, accountability remains absent, Lord Mayor. The Ladies with the Letters advocacy group, who have sat here amongst us in this chamber a number of times, testified at Stormont and concluded, no one has taken accountability. We are no further forward. They expressed deep frustration at the failure of internal reviews. They described it as whitewashed, and the continual delays in external reports from NHS bodies in Scotland, England and Wales are really not on. This has to stop. What these women and their families are asking for and deserve is a statutory public inquiry. They deserve to see and hear the evidence and testimonies to uncover not just what happened, because we know what happened, but we don't know why it happened, we don't know who is responsible, and how we are going to ensure this never happens again. This is about trust. I've said this before in this chamber, trust in public health, trust in our system, trust in government. To rebuild that trust, we need transparency, we need accountability and meaningful reform. And to be clear, this is exactly why a robust and fully funded women's health strategy is not just important, but it's essential. It really must underpin every step we take forward, ensuring women's voices are heard, their health prioritised and their care safeguarded. So as part of our local response, and what is within our remit here in local council, I am requesting that we have approval here this evening to reconvene our health committee at the earliest opportunity and to formally invite representatives from the Public Health Agency, the Department of Health, to come before us. They must talk us through the latest reports so that we as elected representatives can ask the necessary questions to ensure the voices of our constituents are fully represented. My call today is this: do not delay, Minister, do not delay any further. Department of Health, we demand and need to secure some answers to shine a light on these failures. Listen to the stories of the women affected and deliver some real change. We owe it to every woman, not just in this chamber, although there are very few this evening, I have to say, but to everyone who relied on this service and to every family that has suffered in its wake. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Bring in at this point Councillor Keith Radcliffe.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'd like to thank Councillor Flaherty for bringing this forward tonight. I speak with a heavy heart but a clear purpose here tonight to echo the call for statutory public inquiry into cervical screening within the Southern Trust and further afield. It was a privilege to stand alongside the Ladies with Ladders group in Stormont as they brought their stories of Erin Harbinson and Lindsay Courtney to the Health Minister. Erin was just 44 and Lindsay Courtney just 30 years of age. Both were failed by a system that should have protected them. Their families and countless others deserve answers. The RCPAF report confirms what many feared: lives lost and lives altered because of unacceptable failings and smear test screenings. Over 1,700 women have had to relive trauma. The Southern Trust response to my questions about the report have been evasive and inadequate. That's not good enough. Since then, we have learned that every health trust in Northern Ireland has reported screener underperformance. This is no longer a local issue, it's widespread. A statutory public inquiry with full legal powers is the only way to uncover the whole truth, hold people accountable and ensure it never happens again. The Council has played a role in facilitating local dialogue, and I thank all the officers involved. Let us go further. Let us send a united message that we stand with the families. We demand transparency, and we will not accept silence where there should be justice. The lives of these women matter, the truth matters, and only a full public inquiry will suffice. And I second Councillor Flaherty's proposal. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay. Bring in Councillor McConville-Walker.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Flaherty for bringing this proposal. I was going to second, only Councillor Radcliffe got in there before me. Look, I was one of those ladies with a letter, as I've mentioned here before, and it was unbelievable. And for those women who have then had to go off and have repeat smears done and receive treatment from it, it's absolutely horrific what has happened. And to listen to those ladies tell their stories is just unbelievable. And the courage of those ladies and of the two ladies who died, of Courtney and Erin, of the work that those families are doing to raise awareness, I just don't know how they get the strength to do it. I just think it's amazing. And I know that this group is going to continue, the Ladies with Letters group is going to continue until they get answers. I think what Councillor Flaherty has said about the women's health strategy, that's the key to this. Women here definitely deserve better, and these situations really do raise the flaws that we have in our health service. And I know there's loads of reasons for it, our funding and everything, but women here do deserve better. We shouldn't be going for smear tests for them to be misread. And I agree with Councillor Flaherty's request for the health working group, because we can use our voices here to ask these important questions and to try and push for development in all of this and to get better services, especially for women. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Paul Greenfield.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I was also wanting to second that. And Councillor Flaherty, thank you for bringing this evening. As you know, I work with Diane Dawes, who's been meeting regularly with this group also, and indeed, just very recently we sat in a meeting with the Minister along with the ladies, and it's very difficult hearing the stories again and speaking to these ladies and what they're going through. I know there's reports that the Minister has got or getting, and to hear them ask, particularly that they would receive this before it goes into public. Hopefully that will happen, but I do agree it's been called for before, and I agree it's right tonight that we call again for this public inquiry, and I hope that this will happen very quickly. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So the ask of Councillor Flaherty tonight is that the health working group is reconvened. Everyone in agreement? Thank you. Moving on to item number 2, and that's Lough Neagh Sailing Club concerns about conditions, safety and the overall lack of investment at Lough Neagh. I think Councillor Catherine Nelson's going to Yeah, Councillor Catherine Nelson. Okay. Councillor Nelson, if you can just press your button, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, along with Councillor Savage, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Johnson, you'll be aware that we attended a meeting with the Lough Neagh Sailing Club on Thursday night, and I'm aware that you met with them also that same week. I was really disappointed in what I heard and learned on that night. The club said that they have been raising issues with senior officers, including a meeting with our Chief Executive for 10 years now, getting nowhere, hence inviting elected reps from all parties and the media to a very open meeting. Before I do go on further, Lord Mayor, I want to highly commend our staff on the ground. They are so deserving of our credit. I see it with my own eyes. I'm down there regularly. They work tirelessly. They take real pride in the area despite the limited resources given to them. Our director, Claire, is also new, and so this issue is a legacy one. But certainly since she has been made aware, has been incredibly helpful and proactive. But nevertheless, as a result of what we heard, I have grave concerns for the safety of those accessing their boats, with reports of animals and boat owners falling through slots. One dog last week getting tangled in the weed with its owner almost not getting it out. So easily, could have been a child. On Wednesday night, Lough Neagh Rescue went to rescue 2 boats caught up in the weed, which we haven't adequately cut in our loch, and a 20-minute rescue turned into a 2-hour rescue, which also damaged the Lough Neagh Rescue boat. And Lough Neagh Rescue, who attended the meeting as well, reported difficulty getting into the water due to the weeds. Just imagine that scenario, someone or a boat needing rescued, and because of our lack of urgency in dealing with the weed growth, they didn't get in. A children's summer scheme hasn't been able to go ahead, and boats for visitors that usually go out on a Saturday are also impacted. So it really utterly beggared belief when we sat through this meeting on Thursday night. What we need now is not just a short-term fix, but an investment in our jetties to bring them into contemporary times. A vision far beyond what's currently there in partnership with others, including a pump-out station and shore power. Weed cutting, which I've also raised, and I know we have to be sensitive to habitat, but it usually begins in April and didn't begin until mid-July. The reason? The one weed cutter that this large council has was broken. It's shared across so many of our sites, and it really is scandalous that a council of this size doesn't have more than that and can't act fast when these things are broken. A really poor excuse. So what I'm asking for, and I hope others that attended the meeting will agree, better and more regular comms with the club. For example, divers were sent in to look at damage and weeds, and they never got feedback. That's also to include those who we know pay fees, but maybe aren't part of the club. They talked about the fact that there's no signs indicating that we have a sailing club in Lough Neagh, so that tourism aspect really needs realised, and I would ask that we work better with all councils on the loch. It pains me to say this, Lord Mayor, but sadly this is just one of too many examples of a failure to deliver on what's an agreed capital plan when it comes to the larger aspects of it. A part of that capital plan is gathering dust on the shelves of this council because we're not moving apace and we're not meeting our strategic vision. I could list many things, but what come to mind when I sat in that meeting on Thursday night was the fact that we still haven't redeveloped Silverwood Golf and Ski, that we promised to invest highly in Tannickmore Gardens Animal Farm. The money's nowhere to be seen. We don't and haven't invested in Lurgan Park toilets. We haven't advanced the ask for lights, and our North Lurgan and South Lurgan community centres sit whirring away. I could continue, but I'm not going to. So what I'm asking for tonight is urgent action at our marina, and that focus shifts to delivering at grassroots levels all of our strategic aims so that they better the lives and experiences of those living in our borough. Thank you, Lord Mayor, for letting me raise this tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. I want to bring in Councillor Kyle Savage.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I attended the meeting last week and I was quite startling to hear everything. I did walk around the jetties, and jetties that are collapsed, boards that are loose, and it is a major health and safety issue, the jetties alone. Now, I know Claire is just into the post and they speak highly of the work that she's doing, and I think going forward we need that better working relationship with the Sailing Club and others down at Oxford or down at Kinnigo Marina. And I think that lack of information, there's a rumour that council was for selling Oxford Island and all this here, so that's no information is dangerous, going back. So we do need to be keeping people informed. And yet again, at the weekend, the rescue boat couldn't get out. Now, this is serious. I do not want to be sitting in a council meeting having to explain to the general public of someone losing their life on Lough Neagh due to the rescue boat not getting out. It is not good enough. Yes, we could sit here all night blaming everybody for what has happened or whatever. I want to be solution focused. I want to see a report brought back to this council ASAP on what is going to happen within the area. It has to happen, and it has to happen sooner rather than later. That needs to be done. That needs to be our priority over this next number of weeks, not months, over this next number of weeks. There is a frustration in the area, especially whenever we're trying to support well-being and mental health right throughout, and yet we have a facility that can't be used. And what has been said, Tonicmore Farm as well, that whole area is a gold mine for this council, and we have failed to tap into that, and we need to invest in it. Yes, it's one part of a big council, but it's a very important part, and we need to look after it, and we need to do something about it. But I would want to see a better working relationship with the group going forward, be that a working group or whatever you want to call it, I don't care. And that we have a report brought back to council as soon as possible. And again, I want to thank Claire for the work that she has done. The people did speak highly of Claire and the engagement that she has, and well done, and credit where credit is due. And but we do need to get this sorted ASAP, and I would appeal to the officers to get that done. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
The next speaker is the Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and for enabling us to bring in this item of any other business this evening. As Councillor Savage and Councillor Nelson have said, we attended that meeting on Thursday evening, and we heard a lot of the frustrations and concerns from both the Lough Neagh Sailing Club and the berth holders down at Kinnigo. And it was clear they just want the basics done right at this stage, so for the weed cutting to be carried out at the start of the season when it's meant to be, and also for the jetties to be brought up to standard. Councillor Nelson mentioned the incident last Wednesday, and Councillor Savage mentioned the incident at the weekend in terms of the boats getting stuck in the weeds, and that is a major health and safety concern for us as members and as a council. And I think the Lough Neagh Sailing Club is doing their best at promoting the sport of sailing and promoting Kinnigo Marina, which is a real asset for this council. But they want to see the investment in it, and they want to see what those plans are. They're paying their money for it, and they're willing to help work with council to develop that marina further. But I do want to also pay tribute to Claire Duddy, who has been working with the club. They are appreciative of those efforts, but we do need to be promoting the facility more and developing it further, and we don't want to see the jetties being brought into a state of disrepair as what has been happening. And we are sorting out the weed cutting situation, but we don't want the repeat of this next season. So I would urge officers to take as much action as possible in the next few weeks and months ahead. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Liam Mackle.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I wasn't at the meeting last Thursday, but I've been contacted by a number of berth holders at the site, and I briefed them on the action council had taken in relation to the weeds, but they come back to me to say this is much, much more than the weeds. I mean, the whole structural integrity of the jetties is at stake here, and other members have mentioned some of the safety concerns around it, and I would back Councillor Savage's call for an urgent report to be brought back to the next council meeting, just on the urgent steps that we're going to be taking to secure and make sure that these jetties are safe, and that we don't get ourselves into a situation where through lack of action we make a problem worse. So thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Mackle, I was unable to attend Thursday night, but I went down on Wednesday night and spoke to some of the folk, and I agree with the comments that have been made here tonight. And I think if we were to get a couple of quick wins, it would at least lift everybody, so it would. And when I think of that, I'm thinking immediately of the weeds that were stacked up in massive piles last Wednesday night when I was down, and that's the most immediate thing. But a plan for moving on longer term, and I too would pay credit to Claire Duddy and the work that she has done since she's been here, and the folk down there recognise that readily. But I think whether it's at Craigavon Marina or Lough Neagh Discovery Centre, there's an untapped potential in that area for this council. And really, 15 years ago, it was one of the top visitor sites in Northern Ireland after the Giant's Causeway. And I would love to see the time come when we get it back there. And there's an ongoing catering review in this council, and I think the sooner we have the results out of that and move on that and give people facilities where they can eat down there, whether that's the Lough Neagh Discovery Centre or Craigavon Marina, that will also be a turning point, hopefully. But anyway, thank you for your contributions to that tonight. Sorry, Claire Duddy wants to come in. Claire.
So thank you, Lord Mayor, for your very positive feedback, and I'd like the members as well. Look, as an officer, I acknowledge that there's a body of work to be done at Craigavon Marina. There's a number of issues, whether it's the repairs, the weed. I do think there would be value in having a specific Environmental Services Working Group meeting. If you'd, for those members that are part of that, I would like to brief you on some of the challenges that we are facing that I'm not going to go into in this setting tonight, but there are challenges which are outside of the control of council, but I'd like to brief officers on that and bring a report in September, if you're agreeable to that. Thank you.
Okay, members happy with that? Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 3 in AOB, and that is ongoing antisocial behaviour in Lurgan Park and in the toilet facilities. And I'm bringing Councillor Peter Hare.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for allowing me to bring these AOB matters to the floor tonight. I would like to refer back to a meeting I convened on Tuesday, the 12th of November 2024, with all the Lurgan DA councillors. That meeting was held at the Gate Lodge in Lurgan Park and included representatives from the council, the PCSP, the Police Service of Northern Ireland, the park manager, the coffee owner, van owner, and our community safety warden. The focus of that meeting was on ongoing issues of antisocial behaviour and vandalism in Lurgan Park. It was a very constructive meeting, and there was unanimous agreement among all parties that these responsible must be held accountable and face the full force of the law. However, the police made it clear they need evidence. One of that discussions was a collective agreement that a piece of work must return to committee to investigate and price installation of CCTV cameras in and around the park. Yet, here we are, it's now July 2025, 8 months on, and I have not seen or heard any updates on pricing brought back. I am asking, where is that piece of work on the CCTV cameras? Since that meeting, incidents have continued. In January, a rope swing was set on fire. The picnic area was also damaged. The 9th of July, one of the tunnels in the play park was burnt, and last week, sectarian graffiti on trees. This kind of behaviour is not only dangerous and unacceptable, but it's also costing the ratepayer. I want to ask how much of the public money has been spent fixing vandalism element damage in Lurgan Park. Be my estimate, I will be between 8,000 to 10,000 and possibly even more. I understand that you may not have these figures with you this evening, but I would appreciate if you could be brought back to me at the next available opportunity. We cannot continue down this path. The people responsible must be caught, and they must face the appropriate consequences through the courts. They should be the ones paying for the damage, not our residents. The money could be far spent on community events, facilities or support services. Let's get serious about protecting one of our borough's most treasured spaces. Let's get the CTV installed. Secondly, Lurgan Park is not only Northern Ireland's largest and most beautiful urban park, but it also Ireland's largest, with only Phoenix Park in Dublin being bigger. Only described as a hidden gem, I personally believe it is the best park in Northern Ireland. It has now been over 2 years since I was elected to serve the people of the Lough Neagh, and in that time there's not a week passes without someone contacting me, whether by phone, text, person, about the unacceptable state of toilet facilities in Lurgan Park. The usage figures speaks for itself. In 2021 there was 546,397 visitors. In 2023 there were 640,501 visitors. In 2024 there were 630,508 visitors, and in 2005 up to March there's 161,930 visitors, on track to surpass the 630,000 again this year. Given this volume of footfall, it is unacceptable that the current toilet provision consists of 2 metal units more suitable for a building site than one of the most visited park in our borough. I personally would not use them, and I know many constituents feel the same. Along with my council colleagues in the Lurgan area, we have raised this issue multiple times with senior staff. There was previously a comment for a report on temporary toilets to be brought to committee, but this appears to have stalled. Most recently I asked the issue again, and I was informed that a temporary solution was being explored, but the cost quote was scandalously high as a result, as we are essentially back to square one. It is clear that a new permanent toilet block is what Lurgan Park needs, and what the people of Lurgan and the wider Armagh City, Banbridge and Craigavon Council area deserve. We must identify a suitable location within the park and begin the planning and development process without further delay. These projects take time, and if we are serious about delivering for the community, we must act now. Therefore, I propose a formal piece of work is brought back to committee urgently, outlining options and next steps for the delivery of a new permanent block in Lurgan Park. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hearn. You just got in under the 5 minutes. You did, so. Don't think I'm not watching for everybody. Lights rolling on. Okay, next thing is Councillor Peter Laverick.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I suppose I'm going to make some difficult comments myself, but I'm going to start off with something positive, and that's to thank Claire and all their team in the park who do a lot of good work, bringing it into the state it's in, the spring flowers, the biodiversity in the park, the number of programmes that are run in the park, the love that the people of Lurgan and the surrounding area have for the park as outlined in the figures from Councillor Her earlier. It is a wonderful park. It is the second largest urban park in Ireland after Phoenix Park. So that's why it's so frustrating when continued serious incidents take place, particularly in the play park. As Councillor Hers outlined, there's been multiple fires been set in that play park where children play. Serious health and safety concerns, and it's all in the hours when it's open. When there's daylight hours. It's not people jumping the fence and coming in and damaging the equipment. It's during the hours of daylight when they can be seen. People know who they are, and what it creates is an atmosphere where not just the financial damage has been caused, and I would say, Councillor Hurd, it is in the tens of thousands. Like, we invested £250,000 in that site 3 years ago for a new play park, and tens of thousands of pounds of damage has been done. But it's not just that damage in terms of pound and pence. It's a damage that's been done by young people in our community who the parents don't take them into Lurgan Park to experience the beauty of Lurgan Park because they're worried about the antisocial behaviour in the park, and they'll go elsewhere and even outside of the borough. Councillor Hers also touched on issues regarding offensive graffiti, numerous other antisocial behaviour matters, and it is disappointing that we still haven't been able to deliver improved safety measures, whatever they are, and I think everything's on the table, so that these kind of things that can be prevented, or at least action can be taken about those who use them. To come on to the toilets, I mean, this has been a huge bone of frustration for every single representative of the Lurgan DEA. The toilet provision in Lurgan just isn't acceptable, compounded by the closure of the Cush Pavilion, because it just, quite frankly, doesn't work anymore. The toilet provision is not there. It's barely disabled compatible, if anything, and we keep getting promised this interim solution, which I know is being progressed, but it's just frustrating the amount of time that is taken. And a permanent toilet structure is what's needed long term, so we can provide that full accessibility and the full value of the park where people are going. I know there's a lot of people go there every week. We've seen new running events happen there regularly, so it is a huge level of frustration where we can't even get the basics like toilets right and safety in the play park. I know other exciting projects have been talked about the park, like adding lights to the park to extend opening hours and to make it a safer place in those darker and winter evenings, and things like additional facilities for sporting clubs and improved athletic facilities and so on. So it is a fantastic facility. So it's extremely frustrating to see these kind of issues not just happen, but continue to happen, Lord Mayor, because I know you've spoken about them as well as anyone else. So we really do need to get our heads together and put some practical solutions in place to firstly lessen this kind of behaviour going forward, and then to make sure we're maximising Lurgan Park for all the people in its area. I think it's the least we can do on such a prized asset, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Robbie Alexander.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Herr for bringing this. I was in Lurgan Park on Sunday myself, and the toilet situation left a lot to be desired. I think it was the pavilion there was being used. The disabled toilet was being used to store tables in. There was no toilet roll. It was filthy. I mean, the first thing I would say about that is accessible spaces are not storage rooms. That needs to be fixed immediately. All the concerns raised about the toilets in Lurgan Park as well, are obviously very valid. They've been long-standing issues that need to be fixed as soon as possible. The other bit to it as well around the antisocial behaviour, I mean, if I sort of take my member hat off and put my parent hat on, I have young children, I have a dog, I spend a lot of time in urban parks, forest parks, play parks, that sort of thing. You don't have to go too far down the road to go to somewhere like Hillsborough Forest Park. And if you look at the facilities there, the play park, the toilets, it's kind of embarrassing then whenever you come back to Lurgan Park and you see the facilities there. You have a bit that's obviously, there's been a fire there. It's obviously not in use. There's another bit of damage in the park that's like, there's like a metal fence around it, so you're sort of having to walk around essentially scaffolding in the park. Like, parents don't want to take their children to that. I'm certainly not going to rush back to it with my kids. So, there are a lot of good things in this borough, but unless we start to actually invest in them, we touched on it. Was it in the last LB item? We talked about Oxford Island and just the underinvestment, in council assets. Lurgan Park is, it has the potential to be an exceptional park and, to offer a lot to this borough, but we're just not doing the bare minimum to actually make that what it can be. So I would second everything that Councillor Herr has said, and yeah, it's just not good enough, and I would hope to see some improvement soon. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Keith Hockin.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I think there's a bit of an ongoing joke within our group that my topic that I like to speak about most is Lurgan Park toilets. But it is an absolute indictment of the council. So whatever can be done to elevate this, to get resolutions. I know there has been some work. I know we're doing what we can, but there is no actual plan in place to really match in with what we should be providing. I have to say I don't believe CCTV is the answer. I know it has posed quite a number of issues when it was previously talked about at Solitude Park, cost being one of them. But there's a whole range of issues around young people who are playing in a park and CCTV, and I don't actually think that it's a solution. I think one of the tried and tested methods is to invest in youth work, and perhaps one suggestion that could be considered is that through the PCSP we could pull together all the youth groups and youth work providers in the Lurgan area and maybe get a sense from them. I know from working with Drumgour Detached Youth that they're very much across the detail of the young people who might be involved in going in and around the park areas. So it may be worthwhile reaching out to all the different groups. So I think that would be one proposal. And then secondly, I do think we do need to elevate this in terms of a capital investment in Lurgan Park. It's been pointed out, I'm not going to repeat it, but it really is something we need to invest in, and it has been underutilised and underfunded for quite some time. The vast majority of young people going into that park are good. They respect it, they enjoy it. The vast majority of people who use the park are the same. It is a small minority, but we need to show them that we're going to invest in the park and encourage them to continue to use it. So thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Before I bring Councillor Julie Flaherty, I just want to say I agree with what Councillor Hockin says, and I don't think that CCTV would be a panacea by any means for Lurgan Park, but the reality is you won't have any cover from the police. The police can't cover what they have already to cover without going into the park. I'm more concerned at the level of cover there is in the park, and I won't embarrass any officer to tell me how many bodies are in the park on any evening in relation to staff in this council. But what I would like to do as Lord Mayor, and I was at the meeting in November, and quite honestly, I don't see it we've moved one iota forward since that, since we all stood at the gate lodge that day in November. I would like to propose that we once again have a meeting of the Lurgan elected members in the park within the next 7 days, but we ask the relevant director and Claire Dudley to come and to talk to us, and let's open the pages and let's find exactly where the problem lies. Because these young folk that are coming down and setting fire to the play park that was provided a number of years ago, there's no fear in them. You know, they don't go away. I know parents with children 5 and 6 years of age now that won't go to Lurgan Park because of what they have to face. So somebody needs to be there. Now, when I grew up quite a while ago, there was a park ranger. And when he came about the place, you knew how to behave and where to be and where not to be. But that's far distant in the past now. So youth workers, fair enough, bring in whoever you want, but there needs to be a figure in authority employed within Lurgan Park for a period of time in the evenings to try and put an end to this, or we will lose the status that we have of the best park in Northern Ireland. I want to bring in Councillor Flaherty now.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I'll not reiterate everything that's been said, but I just did want to point out that as the new chair of our ABC PCSP, there was a press release put out just on the 2nd of July through our PCSP team and ABC Comms about this very issue of vandalism in our parks. And as was commented by I'll go to the toilets in a wee second, but I will be quick. Like, we had, 43 of 95 or something, is it 43 or 95 play parks that we have had in this borough that have been upgraded, you know, to such a standard. I can't even bring myself to go over it all again, Jonathan, about our inclusive play and our braille communication. Just go on and on and on. And they're the things that get damaged. The wheelchair trampolines, for example, are the things that get damaged. You know, so it's more than just the financial loss. And we do have figures for the financial damage, because those also have been publicised over the years by this council and the comms team. I think it was sitting about 15.5 grand for about 6 months or something. Autumn to spring, was that last year? You can keep me right in that, but it's sitting about 15.5 grand. You know, so we do know how much this is costing us financially in this council, and we also know the distress that it does cause, as you've pointed out, to other parents, of which I am not one, but I still spend a lot of time in play parks, clearly with other people's children, but we do tour the play parks, which brings me to the toilets. Councillor Hockin and I don't need to tell you how long we've been talking about the toilets in Lurgan Park, or Oxford Island, or I have a list here, do you want me to go down them? Solitude, Lough Brickland, there's a list as long as your arm of toilets that need upgraded and that need really, really good cleaning and really brought up to standard. And that's, you know, again, Lord Mayor, before I start talking about our disabled access, I remember sitting in this chamber 6, 7 years ago and talking about disabled toilets that were being used as storerooms. Do you see if I thought for 1 second that that is still going on in some of our council facilities? I'll be past myself, because even over there in South Lakes, they need a good scrub and clean out. There's the changing places, which are very, very expensive to put in and are well used. We have a great policy that's looking after the borough in that respect. But we have to put some pride back into some of these other facilities before we even start building new ones. So, look, we're well rehearsed on this. I would not, for the life of me, settle for a portable toilet out at Oxford Island. That was my area. Not in a million years would I settle for one portable toilet at Oxford Island Play Park after the money we spent in that play park. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Councillor Kerr, for bringing this and giving it an hour this evening, because we can't let these things continue to slide and continue to send random emails about everything that needs cleaned. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mary O'Dowd.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, Lord Mayor, sorry. I totally agree with yourself and Councillor Hockian and everyone else that has spoke here tonight. I myself was at the meeting that you attended in November, and to be honest, I feel nothing has changed myself. If that was a proposal that you put forward, Lord Mayor, of a meeting within 7 days, more than happy to attend it. I think it's urgently needed with everyone involved. It's just disheartening. So it is that we have people, constituents, constantly contact us about it, and our hands is tied. We can't tell them anything because we don't know what's happening. So I think that meeting would be ideal within the next 7 days. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, I want to bring in Gillian Topping. Okay, we don't seem to be able to get Gillian at the minute, so we'll go to Alderman Margaret Tinsley.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And it's very clear the frustration around the Chamber tonight, especially on items being raised in the Chamber and not seeing progression and being progressed on. I would say, Lord Mayor, about 8 years ago in a committee, I asked for a report to be done, and it was Katrina Regan actually did it. And it was a state on all our public toilets within the ABC area. And it came on the back of me taking the children into Tandragee town centre one day, into the town, and we used the public toilets. And I asked on the back of that to have a report done, and it was done. And now just what Councillor Nelson raised tonight, it's gathering dust for the last 7 or 8 years on a shelf, and nothing has been progressed on that. And, it's probably now totally out of date. But money and time and effort was spent on that. And as I say, nothing was progressed for whatever reason. And it's not the first time that I have raised it. I haven't waited for 7 or 8 years to raise it. But just in tonight, I'm getting the sense around the Chamber that yes, Lurgan toilets and Lurgan is an issue, but it's more the frustration that members are raising things and they're not being progressed for whatever reason. And I'm just getting that sense tonight that it really is getting beyond frustration now. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you. In relation to the meeting, the Chief Executive has indicated that he will organise it. I actually don't think the park's the best venue for it. We need somewhere where we can sit down at a table, maybe a room in the town hall in Lurgan or somewhere like that. But anyway, member services will come back and try and get a date that's acceptable to everyone. Moving on to number 4, and Alderman Glenn Barrow wants to speak in relation to Guildford War Memorial.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Do you want to take both of my AOBs?
That sounds like a plan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So that means I have 10 minutes then. Thank you, Lord Mayor. So it's just really if anybody has been through Guildford, or you've been to Guildford recently and over the last number of years, you will, if you look at Guildford War Memorial, you will see a rusty colour coming through the marble. Now, what has prompted me about a month and a half ago, start of June, I came across a photograph of me and my son from 2016. There was no discolourment there then. And if you go online, you will also see no discolourment there from 2016. So it could be another word for it. The problem is whether it's been cleaned wrongly, or whether it's environmental issues, whether it's the water, darkness, where not getting enough sunlight. There's a problem there and it needs addressed. I do believe that the structure is intact, it's perfectly intact, but we do need to see a report come through the council at the earliest, either this time next month or at the committee in September. I feel really strong about it. I've asked different officers over the number of years about this, to be told different reasons, but we need to get right to the bottom of it. Okay, that's on that part. With regarding to Rathfriland and the fence around Play Park and Cross Heights, last year I had asked, can this either be fixed, or can we get a new bit of fence put around Cross Heights Play Park? I was told subsequently that it was a order of works had been raised, and then radio silence several emails later, not just one or two, several emails later, still radio silence on it. So that's why, again, I've brought it to AAB. I would like an answer. I know if I bought something online from China or somewhere, it'd probably be here by now, but 10 months ago, I was given the answer that an order of works had been, so it shouldn't take 10 months to get me an answer if it's been done or not, okay? That's all I'm asking for. Thank you for your time, and safe home. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, Alderman Barr, both reasonable requests, and can we leave it with officers to come back to you? And if you haven't got a response by next month, bring it back here again, and we'll talk further about it. Okay, moving on then to, sorry, I have, yes indeed, right, okay. Alderman Ian Burns.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's just to come in on the back of Alderman Barr there. These things are requested, but they don't seem to be happening. And I think there's a communication problem here, because if the councillors send in an email asking for something, I think they should be answered at least and given the answer. And, maintenance seems to have fallen away. Even, with a play park, a fence that's broken, surely it's a health and safety issue. For children could run out onto the road, or the fence should be fixed because it could be dangerous. These things should be prioritised and made to happen. But we shouldn't have to keep going back to officers to ask them. Once you've sent the original email, you expect information to come back to you, or at least something to tell you. Because Councillor Barr thinks it's bad, that one. I waited 7 years to get lights fixed in Havelock Park. Without any joke, I got a different excuse every time, or a different reason. And it took me I was going to bring it to any other business, and then all of a sudden they were fixed. So we need answers. We're getting hounded by the public, and rightly so. They're paying the bills, and we need answers that we can go back to them and say it's going to be fixed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ian Wilson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's just to concur with Alderman Barr and Alderman Bourne's comments. I think Guildford War Memorial is one of the top things that we constantly get complaints about, and surely, I know it has been looked at before, but surely in nowadays there could be something done to take that awful staining off the stone and to bring it into better fit condition. Another thing too regards the Cross Heights Play Park. I think probably it was last year myself reported that as well, and obviously nothing has been done. And just in regards to another war memorial, the one on Banbridge, I think it was promised that it would be cleaned after the public realms work was completed, and it still hasn't been done. But just on maybe a wee bit more of a positive note, I could thank Jonathan and Claire had reported issues with the play park on Woodlands in Guildford. I've been assured now that repair work is scheduled for August to be done, and a bit of a clean-up done around it. I think it has been in poor condition, but certainly concur with Alderman Barr and Alderman Bourne's remarks. And I don't know whether Alderman Barr's ordering stuff of Timu or whatever, but hopefully it doesn't take that long. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on to the last item of business, which is fly tipping in Portadown. Councillor Kyle Moutray.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Members, tonight I want to raise an ongoing issue that continues to frustrate me, continues to frustrate my constituents, and I think it actually continues to frustrate a lot of council staff, and that is the persistent ongoing issue of fly tipping in many areas across central Portadown, particularly, but not exclusively, in areas like Cecil Street, Burnbrae Avenue, Queen Street and Clonavon Avenue. Despite repeated cleanups by council, this behaviour continues week by week. Council staff are called in time and time again to clear up this mess, but the reality is it's the ratepayers who pay the price, not the people responsible for it. Every time waste is dumped, it diverts council resources from more pressing issues, things we expect of a council, things like the removal of graffiti, things like the cleaning of our town centres, street cleansing, all those issues, things that actually benefit the wider community. And yes, we as a council have done a lot of work to this end. And since I've been on council for about close to 3 years, this is an issue that I have engaged on nearly a weekly basis. And I've spoken to staff members time and time again, and I do not fault their efforts. I've seen many initiatives, I've seen leaflets published, probably to great time, effort, cost, published in 14 different languages. I've seen fines being handed out. I've actually just spoke to a staff member today who told me that in the last year there have been 22 fines, each of £400 that have been issued. And that just shows you the scale and the extent of the problem we have here at hand. Those are good initiatives, I welcome that. But let's be honest, even despite all this, the problem is not going away. So I think it's time for council to take a stronger stance on this and to rethink things. And let's start holding landlords, letting agents and housing associations accountable. Because after all, they have a duty of care over their properties and for their tenants, one that has been too easily ignored for far too long. I would ask that council officers now explore ways to engage directly with these property owners and managers, and where necessary, start enforcing action, and let's look at the full extent of our powers. We cannot continue to clean up after irresponsible behaviour with no consequence, and I would request a further report from council into this matter, into how it's being addressed specifically, and a full account of how many times fly tipping is occurring in each of our towns across the entire borough. Residents want and expect safer, cleaner streets. They deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to Councillor Judy Flaherty.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor, and I don't want to linger too much on the bins. But just to, I suppose, concur with my Portadown colleague here, we all get that, and it's the same areas all the time. And officers and staff know this, as you probably know too. Like even just at the weekend, like in fairness, I got a reply on Saturday morning from an officer that dumping would be lifted in that part of the town. And I had asked about when the last engagement was, as you point out, and the cost of letters and leaflets. And I was told that the last major engagement in that area of Portadown by recycling inspectors was summer 2024, which was your letter. Bin provisions, larger bins, all the information about your nearest recycling centre, good practices, bins are stickered, etc., etc. That's a year ago. And not much change, particularly at these collection points. So you're right, because it's not the fault of the staff that maybe you could argue are being, we're getting it as councillors, it's not being lifted quick enough. They didn't leave it there in the first place. It's the residents that are leaving it there in the first place, for whatever reason. So if given the communication I have from your officers, that there is discussions going on with environmental health, I think that's maybe why Gillian Topping was trying to get in there earlier. If there's discussions ongoing with environmental health about a new approach or re-engagement, can we be kept, as Portadown councillors, can we be kept abreast of that, please? Because it is becoming a really huge problem in that part of Portadown. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay,
thank you.
the next speaker is Councillor Kate Evans.
You're going to give an all list?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I know it's not my area, but I travel through it quite frequently to get to work, and I couldn't agree more. The landlords that dump furniture whenever they get new tenants in is absolutely ridiculous. There isn't a day goes by on James Street in Portadown where someone hasn't dumped something. And our officers do work hard, and it's always cleared away, but unfortunately that's our downfall. We're clearing it away too quickly, so they're just dumping it again because they know we're going to lift it, unfortunately. But I just want to take the opportunity, sorry, Councillor Moutry, to tag something on here. I asked in December for a bin to be removed from the front of Hoy's Butchers. Why the bin was put there in the first place is beyond me, considering they have raw food inside. They were continually dumping bags of rubbish beside it. That bin is still there. It still hasn't been removed. And that's now from December. That's ridiculous.
Okay, Councillor Robbie Alexander.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Moutry, as well. And I've also got pictures, I think, just this week as well, of places like Cecil Street, places like James Street as well. There's another one, so even businesses that are actually on the High Street, so if you go down Woodhouse Street and round the back towards High Street Malcar Park, there's areas in behind there. And I spoke to the butchers down Woodhouse Street, and they've raised it time and time again. I raised it myself with Environmental Health a number of months ago. I got one email and I've heard nothing again since, but like again, places with raw food, and because of the level of fly tipping, there are rats now, you know, being attracted, and anytime something needs to be done, the businesses that are actually renting those lots that are actually on the high street, anytime you go and try and engage with them, they're just kind of pointing you back to some, at times, you know, fairly anonymous, you know, sort of, I mean, like landlord or owner. And I think we need to find a way that we can engage directly with the property owners. I mean, a fine of £400, the fine's less than actually clearing the rubbish. I mean, it's not really going to, you know, sort of encourage any activity to get things cleared up and to get things clean. I think we need to have a new strategy, we need to have a new approach and try and get this resolved, because especially where there's butchers, restaurants, those sorts of things, it's, you know, I mean, it becomes a health issue. It's just not acceptable. Thank you.
The last words to Councillor Mary O'Dowd.
Stand off and I get the last word. We're talking here a lot about fly tipping, mostly Portadown. It's not just happening in Portadown. Lurgan's the exact same. We have a major issue on the bottom of Schenkel Street, as well as other areas, and in Wellington Street. The one in Wellington Street is happening right at the back of the police station. I was informed by an officer in the police station that they got new CCTV cameras put in that could show every wrinkle on your face, which I didn't want to see. But still nothing. Nobody has been charged, nothing, which I think is a disgrace. So it's not just Portadown, it's happening all over. So it is, and just something needs to be done. something. Thank you.
Okay, members, there are no more lights, and at 9:17, can I wish you all a pleasant evening, what remains of it, and we'll do it all again, God willing, next month. Thank you.